Hi, everybody. This is Steve Maggi from SMA Law Firm. Welcome to Building the Bridge. My guest today is Ann Wolfson, business and tech lawyer in New York. Thanks for being with us, Ann.
Oh, thanks for having me, Steve.
So we work in the launching of U.S. companies. We work with a lot of companies that are coming to the U.S., either brand new or expanding their companies. And a lot of them say that they use one lawyer in their home country. Why do they need more than one lawyer to launch their company in the U.S.?
That is a great question. Needing more than one lawyer in the US depends on what you're doing. And it is possible that you could have a small number of lawyers if you launch here. But let me take a step back and give sort of my condensed law school lecture about the differences between our legal system and the ones that most of my clients are coming from.
Okay.
So there are two basic types of legal systems in the industrialized world. There are common law countries and there are civil law countries. The common law countries are all former members or current members of the British Commonwealth or the British Empire, and they are the UK, Scotland, England and Wales, Northern Ireland, Ireland, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the US, Singapore, Hong Kong to some degree, and India. And most European countries have what's called the civil law system. And that has its roots in Roman times and also with Napoleon. Just as a little side note, oddly, the state of Louisiana has a civil law system, which is kind of unusual for the US. The difference between them is, and I'm going to oversimplify it, but this will explain why you need so many lawyers in the US. In a civil law country, the laws are what was passed by the legislature. And they're law books that once something is passed, you put them in code books, you put them up on a shelf. And when you need to know about, how boats are regulated, you pull off the volume called Boats and you read it and you see what the rules are. In the United States, which is probably the most extreme of the common law countries, it's quite different. We have laws also. We have federal laws. We have laws of the 50 states and territories. We have laws for different municipalities and counties. In addition to that, so those are all forms of law. We have 51 plus sets of laws because you have the territories as well, plus all the local laws, plus the federal law. We also make law here based on court cases. So in civil law jurisdictions, in general, when there's a court case, the result only applies to the two people who are involved in the case, the defendant and the plaintiff.
Right.
In the US, court cases affect everybody going forward.
They set a precedent.
They set a precedent, exactly. And so you will have local laws that get litigated, and they might get litigated all the way up to the highest court in the state. Those might go to the US Supreme Court because there might be issues that have federal implications. But what that means is if you are a practicing lawyer and you are staying on top of what goes on in your field, simply following the case law can be quite time consuming. And so when you want to do a good job, you have to pay a lot of attention to what's going on, mostly in your state, mostly at the federal level, but sometimes you have to look to other states because of the way law is developing. I'm licensed in New York. I look at California law a lot because California is creating law that will, in a few years, probably affect my clients, and in some ways already does.
Right.
Because with some of these laws, if my client is operating in both states, the California law effectively gets applied to everybody, no matter where they're operating, because nobody's going to set up two sets of operations. So I'm a corporate lawyer. I focus on technology issues. I do not do tax. That would be total malpractice if I did tax. I do not do real estate. That would be total malpractice if I did real estate. Same for immigration. Same for intellectual property. I do a little bit of each of these because I need to be able to spot issues, to be able to say to my clients, I think you might have an immigration issue here.
You have to understand just enough to identify the issue to then refer it to another attorney, right?
Exactly. And another complexity that comes up in working in a system like this is, I'll give you an example. Steve and I have a number of clients in common. Sometimes they get to Steve through me, sometimes they get to me through Steve. If it's a client that wants to start operations in the US and bring people to the US to start that operation, they will work with me to get the company set up and to get all of those things going and to get their contracts written. They also have to talk to Steve about, how do you bring people to the US legally? How do you get the visas they need? We will also usually consult a tax professional and an employment lawyer to make sure that this is all done properly. Well, the tax lawyer does not want the company to bring money to the US and set up a bank account and leave money in there. But Steve will say to them, no, you need to put X amount of dollars in a bank account to show that you are serious about running this operation for a full year. Otherwise, you will not get a visa. So if the client goes to Steve and to me and to the tax lawyer separately, they're going to get this total mess of Steve saying A, tax lawyer is saying Z, I'm saying something in the middle. Part of what I like to do, and one of the reasons I love working with Steve, is that we together develop a plan for the client with a plan and maybe an alternative or two, but we make sure that we're saying the same thing. And when we bring in a tax professional, we make sure they understand what the ultimate goal is. The goal is not tax minimization. The goal is getting the operation set up with the right people in the US.
Right.
So this is why you need so many lawyers, because what each of us does is so specialized and technical, and nobody can do more than maybe one and a half of these things.
I would even say that people should be wary of lawyers when they ask them, and I get this question a few times a week, oh, can't you also do the corporate part, or oh, can't you do the tax, or why don't you help me on this other aspect like IP or something? And the lawyer says, sure, I'll take care of all of it. That's a really bad way to start your US operations.
Unless they have a small law firm and they literally have someone who does every single one of those things. I think you want to make sure that the immigration lawyer is not doing the corporate work. It's okay if the immigration lawyer goes and finds a corporate lawyer and maybe manages the corporate lawyer. That's fine.
Right.
Or can be fine. But you want to make sure that your immigration lawyer is not also doing your patent filings or doing your taxes, because then you will end up in a world of hurt.
It's really, I guess, what we see a lot is it's putting on a different cap, or like a mindset, a different way of thinking and seeing it from a US lens versus bringing in your perspective and trying to impose that on a brand new legal scenario.
I think that's right. And I think that a lot of what is involved in entering the US is understanding that even though you speak fluent idiomatic English, even though you spent a lot of time here, you are entering a completely different world that may be quite unfamiliar, and that you want to have guides, people who can explain it to you, who can interpret it to you and help you figure out the right way for you.
I couldn't agree with you more. So if you're a foreign entrepreneur thinking of launching a US company and you want to work with someone who's also a generalist and understands enough about different aspects of law to be able to put a team together, how would they get in touch with you, Anne?
Email is the best way. My email address is ann@annewolfson.com. That's ANNE at ANNEWOLFSON.com.
Fantastic. Thanks for your time and your knowledge, Anne.
Thanks so much, Steve. This was great.